A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta. As part of our year-end specials, we bring you an exclusive New Year's Eve conversation on India's rapidly growing gaming industry. With esports and gaming gaining momentum, what does the future hold for this dynamic sector? Can India position itself as a global leader in the gaming landscape? To answer these questions and more, I'll be joined live by Sai Srinivas, co-founder Mleagues. Thank you, Sai, for joining us today for our year-enders. It's a pleasure having you.
Yeah, likewise, Ritwika. Always happy to speak to you and speak to ET Now.
Now, I want to kick things off by talking about India's online gaming market, which grew by 23% in FY24. It has a user base of around 450 million. Esports have also enjoyed a great rise in popularity in India, so clearly it is thriving. So what's on the horizon for India's esport and gaming industry?
If you were to look at broadly India gaming, I'd break it into two big parts, right? One is the skill gaming industry, and the other one is the free-to-play or in-app purchase, part of the industry. I think for the skill gaming industry, I think this year has been a year of a slight bit of a reset because of the dramatic change in taxation that happened last year. But that being said, I think for most of the players in the industry, it's been a fairly good year in the sense that they've all come out of that entire, change in tax regime and now are able to build on top of that. So I think that way, I think it's been a great year for them.
Sure.
I think the skill gaming industry is only going to go from strength to strength. The industry has bounced back in many ways this year, and I think the industry is only going to go to higher and better places in the years to come. I think it'll easily record north of 25% growth next year, in my opinion. I think the real goodness that's coming in gaming in India is actually also coming from the free-to-play industry, which is the in-app purchase is part of it, right? I think more and more Indians are now comfortable spending on in-app goods, that is free-to-play games, and I think that's not been the case, say, 2-3 years back, and that's dramatically changing in this, at least the last year and this year. I think that industry is easily poised to see about 30 to 40% growth next year. I think esports as an industry, I think in India is actually as a function of the free-to-play gaming industry. I think if the free-to-play gaming industry grows, esports will automatically grow because you need esport players. I think even till date, India has a very limited number of esport players. It's not that India has a large base, but I think what is definitely happening in India is more and more people are tuning in to watch gaming content and gaming streams of popular YouTube streamers. And I think esports as a beneficiary of that is growing. I think I'd probably say in the next 2.5 years is where you would see a really high point for esports. I think next year it's still going to be mainly skill gaming and free-to-play.
Now, Mleagues has managed to see double-digit year-on-year growth, and you crossed the 1,000 crore revenue mark in FY24. What do you see as the core drivers behind this remarkable success?
Sure. I think for us, two big headlines as a part of that, story last year is that, about 40% of our net revenues now actually come from outside India. And I think that part of the business is definitely growing and growing pretty fast. We expect our non-India revenues or outside India revenues to grow grow by at least another 40-45% next year. I think the India business for us was the highlight this year in the sense the MPL business, which is part of Mleagues, which is the skill gaming business.
Sure.
I think MPL, even after the dramatic change in taxation last year, saw a very meaningful growth this year, and I think that was a little bit of an unexpected thing to happen. We weren't expecting the kind of resilience that the MPL business showed, but it was incredible to see the MPL business growing, and not only growing but also growing profitably. even after taking the the kind of hit that we did last year with the change in GST. I think these two businesses are well poised to grow into next year, and I think even our outside India business should ideally grow from the 40% ratio to somewhere to 44-45%.
Right.
Our ideal mix that we want to get to, say, hopefully in a year and a half, is that 50% of our revenue should come from India and 50% of our revenue should come from outside India. And if you were to look at, most digital businesses in India, I don't think there's any business that, can claim to say that half of the revenues actually comes from outside India and half of the revenues come from India. I think that is a truly one-of-a-kind international product story that's never happened in India, and we're very excited to be that company that makes it happen.
Now, you are present across India, Europe, Nigeria, USA. Which of these global markets, in your view, holds the most promise for exponential growth?
Sure, I think I'll answer that question in two parts, which is which of these markets holds, outside India of course, holds great promise in the short term and in the long term. I think short term is more say 18 months to 24-month horizon, and say long term would be more a 36 to 48-month horizon for us. I think in the short term, I definitely say our European business is absolutely going places. They've had a stellar year. To give you context, this studio of ours, Game Duel, they've gone from like nowhere to the second largest free-to-play gaming studio in Germany. I think that's a huge achievement. I think in the near term, their games seem to be doing very well in Europe, and so therefore in the near term for us, Europe is going to be a fairly high area of growth, and we expect to see at least 30 to 40% growth there for the next 2 years. From a long-term standpoint, from the next 3 to 4 year standpoint, we see US as the place that's going to deliver very solid numbers. I think we'd see US more, and for that we need to ensure that we put our head down and continue to do the good work in US over the next year and a half for that future to play out.
Now, Sai, skill gaming currently commands 80% of the gaming market revenues in India, which has faced significant challenges from GST regulations, with MPL's tax burden increasing by 350 to 400%. Tell us, how has Mleague navigated these hurdles, and what is the future of this category?
The tax burden definitely is a tough pill to swallow, but I think the way Mleagues navigated this is to fundamentally become a global business. And we by no means intend to be or want to be an India-only business. We see India as the future. We want to be the gaming company for India, but we want to ensure that we build our revenue base from as many global markets as possible.
Right.
And I think that makes us a very resilient business to any potential changes or any potential jerks that can happen along the way. And I think an industry like gaming, which is still a fairly nascent industry in India, it's prone to see certain changes in regulation. It's prone to see, new rules coming in. And it's only fair that, these things happen. I mean, every market in the world has seen changes in most sunrise industries, right? But the way Mleague looks at it is that, our goal is to build a very, very solid anti-fragile business in the sense that we believe diversification, both in terms of geographical revenue, but both in terms of business model as well. So if you were to look at it, 40% of our revenue as of today comes from outside India. But if you were to look at it, about 35 to 40% of our revenue comes from free-to-play businesses, and about 60 to 65% comes from skill gaming. I think this diversification is fundamentally how we've, kind of navigated this change, and it is going to be how we continue to navigate this change.
So on that note, what steps or reforms do you think are crucial to position India as a global leader in the gaming industry?
Absolutely, I think that's a great question. I think first and foremost, let's break it down into two things, right? For any industry to thrive, it needs clarity. It needs clarity on two fronts. Clarity in terms of the legality and clarity in terms of the taxation. Multiple courts have ruled very clearly in the favor of saying that skill games are completely kosher, and that's a very acceptable form of building a business. That's on the legality front. I think on the legality front, I think we made great progress. On the taxation front, I think what happened last year was a great step forward. It at least ended a long debate of how this business is going to be taxed. So at least now everybody is clear that going forward, this is how this business is going to be taxed, and this is the method of taxation. I think there's also still a pending matter of, say, the retrospective taxation and what's happening to the industry at a scale, and a lot of companies are still facing this, uncertainty of really onerous retrospective taxation claims.
Right.
And I think that matter, hopefully, if it gets resolved, I think then this industry is going to go places. In fact, then India gaming is going to go places. And I'll tell you why that is important. For any investment to come into an industry, there needs to have structural clarity on these two fronts. And while there is a lack of clarity on these fronts, it's very hard for any investor to actually go ahead and invest in these industries. And the only way India gaming is going to grow is if Indian gaming companies are going to invest money in building solid games for India.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. In conversation tonight with Sai Srinivas, co-founder Mleague, on what's the next big thing that could redefine India's gaming industry. Listen in. So since Mleague's acquisition of Europe's Game Duel in 2022, the company has moved from skill gaming to free-to-play, with 70% of its revenue now coming from F2P games. Can you share insights into this journey and the lessons learned that could influence your future strategies?
Yeah, so I think when we had acquired them, they were still really early into their free-to-play journey. They were still what they had was still a concept, and the concept was that they wanted to build an underlying game engine that enables you to produce really high-quality free-to-play card and board games for multiple different markets. The insight was that every single country has its own card games that families grew up playing. I'm sure you played a particular game with your family when you were growing up, like as well as I did, and this is true about most countries in the world. So the insight that Game Duel had was, hey, you know what, we're going to make this really good engine that allows us to make high quality card games, and we will be able to run these card games and manufacture these card games, or not manufacture, but produce these card games at very low cost. At that time, it was still a concept. And I think what Mleague did was that Mleague really was able to see the vision of what they wanted to achieve. And we acquired the company, and we completely gave them the freedom and also the investment needed to actually go produce produce the engine and subsequently the games. And this is what happened over the last, say, 2-year period. They produced the engine, and then since that point, every single game that they've produced has been either in the first, second, or third in the various markets that this game has been, that they've launched those games in. For example, Skat, which is a very popular, very community-driven German card game. I think it's in the top 3 or top 4 in Germany. Rame, which is a very popular European game in general. It's a variant of Rummy that we have in India. It's a free-to-play game in Europe. It's in the top 3 or top 4 in most countries in Europe right now on the Play Store. And in fact, that game has now been nominated for Pocket Gamer Awards in Europe, which is kind of like, say, Golden Globes for gaming in Europe, right? The third game, which is called Tarot, which I think it's just recently launched, and it's already in the top 5 in France. Tarot is a very popular card game in France. Notwithstanding the erstwhile game Balote, which is the largest free-to-play Balote game in the world by DAO, and in fact amongst the top 1 or 2 games in France. I think this kind of transformation is what we as Mleague are very proud of. I think it's very easy to say that we invest. Multiple people talk about investing in gaming and talk about investing in studios, but I think we at Mleague are very proud to actually walk that talk and actually have proper success stories, not once but thrice, play out over the last 2 years. And I think that's and the most important ingredient in that transformation is being patient.
Now, you also recently launched Blast Plus, your dedicated F2P publishing arm. That's very interesting. Can you elaborate on what the plans are with Blast Plus?
Absolutely. I think, as I told you, right, we see free-to-play as one of the largest growth engines for gaming in India. And to give you context of how big free-to-play is, free-to-play is the smallest gaming industry in India. Skill gaming accounts for almost 80% of India gaming, as you said earlier. In fact, I agree with you. The rest 20% is free-to-play. In that 20%, the largest game in that 20%, as of today, makes more money than the most successful film in India in that year period. And that is how big it is already. And we expect this is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger over the next 3-4 years. And what we've realized, especially after we've the success that we've seen with Game Deal, is that we've realized that there are many such game studios outside India who are producing world-class content, and most of them don't have a sense or understanding of how do they tackle India, how do they enter India. Because for most of these guys, India doesn't even feature in the top 10 markets or top 15 markets. So, if you're running a business and, if a particular country doesn't even feature in the top 15 markets, then, you'd really not prioritize it or focus on it.
Right.
But if you're not focusing on India today, you obviously would regret that decision 4 to 5 years down the line. And I think that's where Blast Plus comes in. The idea with Blast Plus is to actually go partner with all these international gaming studios who are making really good content and give them a one-stop shop where they can just partner with, bring their content to India and launch their games in India. And we figure out the monetization, we figure out the marketing, we figure out everything, and at the end of the month, we just send them a check, right? And I think this is pretty much the same business model that's made Tencent in China a big company, NetEase in China a big company, and in fact Garena in Southeast Asia a big company. And our intention is that Blast Plus provides that kind of a platform for international game studios to come to India. That's part one. But with Blast Plus, the goal is also to be that kind of a platform for Indian gaming studios. We also are actively looking out, and in due time you will hear us announce a few things of how we are bringing a bunch of Indian gaming studios who are producing really good content, giving them with the platform and the capital to actually launch that content and monetize that content in India as well. So that's what Blast Plus is for. And we're very excited about what it can do over the next couple of years for free to play in India.
Fantastic. Sai, just shifting gears a bit, now the power of games is that they are immersive experiences that can evoke deep emotions and involve deeper engagement. So tell us about the role of AI in gaming and esports. How is that changing the space?
Sure. I think the way you should think about AI is that gaming is a huge net beneficiary of AI. AI is essentially going to make content creation cheaper and easier, right? Like if you were to think about it, AI is today making it easy for you to create videos, easy for you to create audio clips.
Right.
I think it's going to make it easy for game developers and designers to create games. It's going to shorten the game development cycle. I mean, all this is still a promise. That being said, I mean, most of these things I think are going to happen over the next, say, 2 to 3 or 4 years. And when that happens, the amount of gaming content that's going to be available for people to engage with is going to increase dramatically. Like, the day it became easy to make a video was the day when, things like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts actually took off, right? I think it's the same that's going to happen with games. I think you'll start seeing more and more in games being created, more content being available in the format of games for players to play. And I think that's going to be a net positive thing for platforms like MPL, because it means that there are more games that we can put on our platforms and more games that we can, provide the end user to engage with.
So Sai, as we are stepping into 2025, tell us, what are the most significant trends are you observing in the rapidly changing gaming industry? What is the next big thing that could redefine this space?
Sure. See, I think in India, I'd say that 2025 and 26 will be the year of free-to-play and in-app purchases for India, like how 2018, 2019 and 2020 were the years for skill gaming, where a lot of skill gaming companies emerged and you saw incredible momentum in that space. I think you're going to see similar momentum in the free-to-play space. I think is one thing that I'd definitely say. I think 2025 will definitely be the year where an Indian game developer is going to rule the Indian gaming charts. It's never happened, at least in monetization. We've always had international game developers do that. 2025 for sure will be the year where, there are 3 or 4 in reckoning. I hope one of them makes it, but one of them will definitely be, will definitely be there in at least the top 3. I hope the top one, but at least in the top 3 in India.
Fantastic. And looking ahead, what are your main priorities for 2025?
My main priorities, I think for the company, my number one priority would be to continue with the momentum. We've had a tremendously consistent year in terms of growth and profitability in 2024. Our intention would be to continue with that momentum in 2025. That's one. Our second goal would be to, definitely deliver at least one successful title with Blast Plus in free-to-play in India. I think these would be my 2 big overarching goals.
It was lovely chatting with you, Sai. Thank you so much for your time and wish you a very happy New Year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I, as always, love to speak to you.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and here's wishing all our viewers a very happy New Year. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.